What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with this top 15 shooting guards in professional basketball history. Took a little break from it. I want to go ahead and continue. Just to do a brief recap. At number 15, I had Trace McGrady. Number 14, Vince Carter. Number 13, on my list, I had Klay Thompson. I think that's a very controversial choice. A lot of people thought I had him too high. Number 12, Reggie Miller. Number 11, Ray Allen. Number 10, I had Earl of Pearl Monroe. Number 9, I had Sam Jones. And number 8, I had James Harden. Number 7, George the Iceman Gervin. And number 6, I have the answer, Allen Iverson. Now, I've had a couple people tell me that I should put him higher than this. And I really was thinking about it, man. I was thinking. I don't know, man. I just feel like where he is right now, it fits. It fits right where he is. Top 10 all-time shooting guard. Borderline top 5 all-time shooting guard. All right? Look, one of the knocks on Allen Iverson is that he never won a championship. But it has to be remembered that AI played with less talent than almost everybody else that's going to be on this list. If not everybody. He played with less talent. I mean, I think in his prime, the best player that he played with was Mutombo, and even Mutombo was like toward the end of his prime. So I mean, I guess for his career, the best player he played with was Carmelo, but they weren't a good fit for one another. As far as teammates is concerned. And then there's this thing that, AI was selfish and, he didn't want to change his game. He didn't want to come off the bench. And, in fairness to Allen Iverson, unlike Carmelo and Russ, at that time, if I'm Allen Iverson, I don't know if I do want to come off the bench. Now, for a lesser role, where, maybe I'm not averaging 30, but I'm averaging 23, 24, I think he'd have been comfortable with that. He probably realized he was slowing down a bit, but as late as 2008, 2007, 2008, wasn't he averaging 26 a game? So all of a sudden the next year he's supposed to come off the bench and be a role player? That didn't sit well with me. So, Allen Iverson is one of these players that proves that championship rings are an overstatement. They matter, I think, when you're comparing two comparable players. But sometimes you got to look at how a player wins a championship, their teammates, the era they're playing in, the competition. And then you got to look at AI. Yeah, he never won a championship, but AI was the player that brought back the Philadelphia 76ers to respectability after that disastrous trade in '86, in which they traded Moses Malone for a pack of Oscar Mayer bologna and some whipped cream, essentially. And I'll talk about that later on. But I want to look at Allen Iverson's career averages. He played in 914 games over a span of 14 seasons. All right. He did play overseas in 2010, 2011 in Turkey. But over a span of 14 seasons, he played in 914 games. He averaged 26.7 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 6.2 assists. And, the 6.2 assists flies in the face of the narrative that he was this selfish player. And for him to average 6.2 assists, considering that he didn't play with the greatest talented teams, you know what I'm saying? He didn't play with Kevin Garnett or Ray Allen or, he didn't play with Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh or Kevin Love or Kyrie or you know AD. He didn't play with these guys. He played on some great defensive teams. Aaron McKee was Sixth Man of the Year in 2001, but offensively, his teammates were rather challenged. Matter of fact, I think the best offensive player he played with was probably Tony Kukoc in his prime. The only shooter that he played with was Kyle Korver, like real gunslinger. Trying to look at his best years. From 98 to 2008, Iverson was phenomenal. I mean, one of the greatest scorers ever. During those years, that 10-year period from 98, 99 to 2007, 2008, AI averaged 28.9 points, 3.8 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 2.3 steals. He shot 42.3% from the floor. And I know that's low, and people are going to say he's an inefficient shot jacker, but you got to remember the era that he played in. All right? He played in an era where, the spacing wasn't that great. The three-point shot was not featured the way it is now, which opens up the floor. The driving lanes were narrower. And even then, when you consider that the Sixers didn't really have many scorers on that team, and defenses could double and sometimes triple AI, of course that's going to lead to him having games where he was inefficient. And he had some bad games. He had some stinkeroos. I remember sometimes looking at the box score and seeing AI go 6 for 30. He had some of those games. Okay? He did. But for the most part, AI was one of the most dangerous scorers this game has ever seen. He was a 31% three-point shooter. So that was never his forte, shooting threes. He would occasionally have a game where he could get it going from outside, but that just wasn't his forte. He was a good free throw shooter, and he had a knack for getting to the foul line. And he was fearless. This is a guy that was not big, 6 feet, listed probably more like 5'10" and a half, barefoot, 165 pounds in his prime, soaking wet. But he didn't care. This is why, he had so much respect from some of his peers, especially Shaquille O'Neal, especially in that finals, because this is a guy that didn't care who was down there. He would take the pounding, and he would keep on and on and on and on, and get back up. And the fact that he lasted as long as he did was a testament to his toughness, because there were many games when Allen Iverson played and he was hurt. He wasn't always healthy. Sometimes it's stories that teammates had to hide his jersey from him because he felt an obligation to go out there and play when he was hurt. And he's the antithesis of people like Kawhi Leonard and AD. Allen Iverson led the league in steals 3 times. 3 years in a row, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2002. 2000, 2001, 2001, 2002, and 2002 and 2003. AI had a tendency, obviously, handling the ball as much as he did. He did have a tendency to turn the ball over some. All right. His rookie year, he averaged 4.4 turnovers per game. For his career, he averaged 3.6 turnovers per game. Toward the latter part of his career, he kind of got a little bit of a hold of the turnover thing, but he was also a workhorse. He averaged 41.1 minutes per game for his career. He had an engine that didn't stop. He led the NBA in minutes, not once, not twice, not thrice, not 4 times, not 5, nor 6 times, but 7 times he led the NBA in minutes per game, including 2007-2008 when he was 32 years old. he averaged 41.8 minutes per contest. Matter of fact, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, 11, 12. He had 12 different seasons. 12 where he averaged at least 40 minutes per game. And I want to make this note about the shooting percentage. From 2006, right? 2005, 2006 is when they first started, the NBA first started making rules to help perimeter players be able to score either more efficiently or make them more productive scorers as far as scoring productivity. That was the first season. Now for his career, he shot 42.5%, right? But I just want to show something to you. From 96 to 2005, Iverson shot 41.8% from the floor, 30.9% from three, and 76.9% from the foul line. But from 2005 to 10, he shot 44.4% from the floor. So that doesn't sound like much, but that's a phenomenal increase in accuracy. 32.5% from three-point range and 80.3% from the charity stripe. So he became more efficient the older he got, and that was a testament because of the fact that it was starting to become easier to score, which is why I believe if AI was playing today, he'd probably shoot 45, 46% from the floor. But anyway, I want to look at his resume for a second. Allen Iverson, you look at his resume. Give me 1 second. He was a 2000-2001 league MVP, 11-time NBA All-Star, twice 2001-2005 he was the All-Star Game MVP, 3-time All-NBA First Team Player, 3-time All-NBA Second Team Player, All-NBA Third Team, 1996-97 Rookie of the Year. Of course, he was on the rookie team that year. 4 times he led the NBA in scoring. 3 times, as I mentioned, he led the NBA in steals. He's on the 75th anniversary team. His number 3 is retired by the Philadelphia 76ers. Consensus First Team All-American in 1996. First Team All-Big East in 1996. Second Team All-Big East in 95. 2-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, 95 and 96. Big East Rookie of the Year in 95. First Team Parade All-American in 1993. He scored 24,368 points. He wasn't allowed the privilege of scoring 25,000 points in his career. He grabbed 3,394 rebounds. Of course, being as small as he wasn't expected to be a great rebounder. But he dished out 5,624 career assists. Unfortunately, he never won Olympic gold, but he was on the 2004 Athens team that won the bronze. Allen Iverson was born in Hampton, Virginia, back in 1975, to a single mother at the time, which was 15 years old. During his early childhood years in Hampton, Iverson was given the nickname Bubba Chuck. A childhood friend said that Iverson would always look out for the younger kids and that he, quote, could teach anybody. When Iverson was 13, his father figure was arrested in front of him for dealing drugs. Iverson then failed the 8th grade because of absences and was moved to get out of the projects. He attended Bethel High School, where he started as a quarterback for the school football team, while also playing running back, kick returner, and defensive back. He also started at point guard for the school basketball team. Incidentally, Iverson has always maintained that he thought that he was a better football player than basketball player. Now, I don't know, if that was really the case or he just felt that way, because he would have been far too small to play in the NFL. But it just goes to show you his athleticism. That is a very understated part of his game. During his junior year, Iverson was able to lead both teams to Virginia State championships, as well as earn the Associated Press High School Player of the Year award in both sports. Iverson played for the Boo Williams AAU basketball team and won the 1992 17 and under AAU National Championship. This team was coached by Blee Williams, which has been credited by him as his most inspirational coach of all time. You know, Iverson has his reputation for being a coach hater. But in almost, his career, the accolades, the Hall of Fame, all these things almost didn't happen because of an incident that occurred on Valentine's Day, 1993. On February 14th, 1993, Iverson and several of his friends were involved in an altercation with several other patrons at a bowling alley in Hampton, Virginia. Allegedly, Iverson's crowd was raucous and had to be asked to quiet down several times, and eventually a shouting duel began with another group of youths. Shortly after that, a fight erupted, pitting the white crowd against the black crowd. During the fight, Iverson allegedly struck a woman in the head with a chair. And I say allegedly because it allegedly, happened, but it really didn't. He and the videotape proved that. He and three of his friends, who were also black, were the only people arrested. Iverson, who was 17 at the time, was convicted as an adult of the felony charge of maiming by mob, a rarely used Virginia statute that was designed to combat lynching. A videotape surfaced, ain't that ironic? A law that was used to combat lynching was used to arrest a black youth. But anyway, a videotape surfaced of the incident that shows Iverson leaving shortly after the fighting began. So the videotape showed that Iverson left, but he was being railroaded anyway. Why? Because he was Allen Iverson, and sometimes, prosecutors they may be motivated by nefarious reasons, and sometimes they're motivated by career notches. These people are ambitious and they want something on their resume. Of the incident, Iverson said, quote, "For me to be in a bowling alley where everybody in the whole place know who I am and be cracking people upside the head with chairs and think nothing going to happen, that's crazy. And what kind of a man would I be to hit a girl in the head with a damn chair? I'd rather them say I hit a man with a chair, not no damn woman," unquote. After Iverson spent 4 months at Newport News City Farm, a correctional facility in Newport News, he was granted clemency by Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder. And the Virginia Court of Appeals eventually overturned the conviction in 1995 for insufficient evidence. Allen Iverson never publicly thanked Doug Wilder, but I believe that he did privately meet with him and thanked him. And I'll tell you another thing, because I believe the pardon came in December of 1993. Iverson's very lucky that was one of the last things that Doug Wilder did, and that Doug Wilder was the governor at that time. Because, say, had this thing happened a year later, when George Allen was governor, I don't know if Iverson ever would have had a career. Because remember, after George Allen left office, we had Jim Gilmore, and then Jim Gilmore didn't get out of office until 2002, when it was Mark Warner, and by that time Iverson would have been 26. So his career would have been over. It would have never happened. Too old for college, more than likely. Too old to go to pros unless he, try to live some dream. If he did get parole, but then there's no guarantee that he would, But anyway, the incident and its impact on the community is explored in a documentary film called No Crossover, The Trial of Allen Iverson. And, after prison, after the prison sentence forced him to complete his senior year of high school at Richard Milburn High School, a school for at-risk students, instead of competing in sports at Bethel. However, the 3 years Iverson spent at Bethel were enough to convince Georgetown University head coach John Thompson to come out and meet Iverson and offer him a full scholarship to join the Georgetown Hoyas basketball team. So, you had two black men, Doug Wilder and John Thompson, who gave him a lifeline so he could have a career. I'm getting emotional because I think it's just screwed up how the videotape showed that he didn't do anything. And this would have been another person's life thrown away because of racism. You can call it whatever you want. It was racism. And somebody trying to score points. But anyway, in his first season at Georgetown in 94-95, Iverson won the Big East Rookie of the Year award and was named to the All-Rookie Tournament first team. That season, Iverson led the Hoyas to the Sweet 16 round of the NCAA tournament, where they lost to the North Carolina Tar Heels. In his second and final season at Georgetown in 1995-96, Iverson led the team to a Big East championship all the way to Elite Eight round of the NCAA tournament, where he lost to the Massachusetts Minutemen. He ended his collegiate career as the Hoyas' all-time leader in career scoring average at 22.9 points per game. Iverson was named as a first-team All-American. Iverson was also named the Big East Defensive Player of the Year in each of his 2 seasons at Georgetown. Following his sophomore year, Iverson declared for the '96 NBA draft. He was the first player under Coach Thompson to leave Georgetown early for the NBA. Iverson was selected with the first overall pick in the 1996 draft. Listed at 6 feet tall, he became the shortest first overall pick ever in a league normally dominated by taller players. And the year before Iverson got there, the Sixers had an 18-64 record. And this is where I want to talk about Moses Malone again. After that trade, Charles Barkley tried to do what he could. Moses Malone was traded away. Julius Erving was he retired. Bobby Jones retired. Andrew Toney had to retire due to foot injuries. Maurice Cheeks was still there for a couple of years, but he was on the downside of his career. So Charles Barkley tried to carry that team to preeminence. I think Barkley should have won the MVP in 89-90. I think that's the year they won 53 games. But by 92, Barkley realized that he was never going to win with Philly, and he demanded a trade. And they acquiesced, I think, in June of 92. They traded him to the Suns. Next couple of years, they had some teams with Dana Barros and who else was on those teams? Jeff Hornacek, Willie Barton, but they never really did anything. And the year before Iverson got there, they were 18-64. And I remember Allen Iverson's rookie year, man. He was phenomenal. He averaged 23.5 points per game, 7.5 assists, and 2.1 steals per game. And late in that year, he scored 50 points in a game against Cleveland. And he also broke Wilt Chamberlain's rookie record of 3 straight games with at least 40 points, doing so in 5 straight games, one of those being a 50-point game. But they still only went 22-60 that year. The next year, the 97-98 season, there was some improvement. The team added Theo Ratliff, Eric Snow, Aaron McKee. Larry Brown became the new head coach, and they went 31-51. In 1999, before the start of that abbreviated season, Iverson signed a 6-year, $71 million contract extension. That year, AI really went up as far as his scoring, averaging 26.8 points per game, which led the NBA. And he was named to his first All-NBA first team. And that year, the Sixers went 28-22. The first time in a long time they finished above 500. And went to the playoffs that year, losing in the second round, ultimately to the Pacers in 6 games. The next year, they went 49-33. AI had another tremendous year. They went all the way to the second round, but they lost to the Pacers again, I believe, that year. But 2001 would be the year, the magical run year. That year, they went 56-26. Iverson averaged then a career high 31.1 points per game. And he was the runaway MVP that year. And it had AI really put that team on his back that year. It's the most memorable playoff run that I can recall outside of the Jordan years that I can recall watching. And why? It's because of his individual brilliance, despite being so tiny. I remember them beating the Pacers in the first round, if I remember correctly. I remember having like a 46-point game against them. Then in the second round, they went up against the Raptors, a memorable series that went 7 games. AI had 2 50-point games in that series, including the night that he won the MVP. I think that's the night he dropped 54. Then he went up against the Bucks, who were a formidable team that had the three-headed monster of Ray Allen, Sam Cassell, and Glenn Big Dog Robinson. I think they beat that team in 6 games. And then in the finals, they went up against the juggernaut Lakers team that had been a whole different team after they benched Ron Harper, who was starting to show his age, and they put Derek Fisher in the starting lineup. They were just unbeatable in the playoffs. But the one loss that they suffered was because of AI in Game 1. He dropped 48 points in an overtime victory. But after that, the Lakers achieved a gentleman's sweep, 4-1 against them. And then, this is the thing. Afterward, it was expected that Philly would be the preeminent team in the Eastern Conference. But unfortunately, Philly never reached the finals again. Surprisingly, the next couple of years, Jason Kidd, who was traded from the Suns to the Nets that offseason in 2001, led them to 50 wins in 2002. They went to the finals 2 years in a row. Then we saw the rise of the Detroit Pistons, and they went to the finals 2 years in a row, 2004, 2005. Winning in 2004, coming so close to winning in 2005 too. And then Miami wins the championship in 2006. So despite the Lakers, the Eastern Conference was starting to win, but it didn't include AI. And then you had the Spurs winning a championship. But then in 2007, it was LeBron and his team making that Cinderella run. And by that time, AI was getting a little bit older. The team, Philly never really bringing a team or building a team that could beat some of the other teams. Obviously, AI had issues with Larry Brown. That was well noted. AI was criticized in the press for being selfish, which, I don't think that's the case. I mean, the team just never really put a lot of talent around him. They tried to feature him as the offensive player and build a defensive rebounding team around him, but, that was good enough for them to get to the playoffs every year, but not good enough for them to be a championship contender. I think that team needed another offensive force, and I think they needed a guy coming off the bench. And I think if they did that, had a guy coming off the bench and another secondary scorer, then I think Philly would have been good enough to possibly win a championship. By 2007, 2008, Iverson's run with Philly was getting ready to come to a close, and he was definitely on the downside of his career. I think he plays with Denver for 2 years. Actually, it was 2006 when he was traded to the Nuggets. And they played 2 years in the Denver Nuggets. And then he plays in 2008, 2009 with the Detroit Pistons. By this time, Iverson had put on a little bit of weight. He had lost some of his explosiveness. And, he wasn't quite the same player. And, I think he was deactivated late in 2009 by the Pistons. And then in 2009, 2010, Iverson signed a 1-year contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. And, he wasn't starting by this point. Iverson didn't like coming off the bench. He talked about it, a lot in the press. And then he left the team in November of 2009. His contract was terminated later on that month. And that he only played three games for the Grizzlies, averaging only 12 points a game. 2009-2010, Iverson returns to Philly, and obviously he was not the same player as he once was. The team was no longer a contending team. By this time, the Eastern Conference was dominated by LeBron and Boston and teams like that. Iverson left the team indefinitely in February 2010 because of his daughter's health issues. It was announced in March that Iverson would not return to the Sixers. And I thought pretty much after that, Iverson was blackballed from the NBA. Nobody wanted his services. The next year he plays overseas in Turkey, and then that's a wrap. That's it. It's a career. And Iverson didn't officially retire until 2013. There was hope that someday maybe AI may come back and play, but that day never came. And then when Iverson was 37 years old, I believe it was 37 or 38, that's when he retired. When you look at his playoff numbers, they're even more impressive. Iverson is third all-time in average behind Michael Jordan and Luka Doncic. For his career in the playoffs, he averaged over 30 points per game. I believe it was 30.3 points per game. No, it was 29.7, 29.7 points per game in the playoffs. 3.8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2.1 steals. And while he never won a championship, he had some amazing performances. I think it was back in 2003 in the playoffs, he dropped 55 points in a game against I think at that time they may have been the New Orleans Hornets. I know it's against the Hornets. But anyway, AI was more than just a great dominant basketball player who was unstoppable one-on-one. He had the crossover, which, along with Tim Hardaway, is considered the best crossovers in the history of the NBA. Not only was he unstoppable, lightning quick, in his prime, tremendous one-on-one player, I think he was an underrated athlete. And as a defender, while he wasn't a great one-on-one defender in the NBA, he was a terror in the passing lanes due to his size and quickness, leading the league in steals 3 times in a row. And more so than that, he was, in my opinion, the second greatest cultural impact of any player other than Michael Jordan. It was Iverson that embraced hip-hop culture. It was Iverson that appeared on Slam magazine with his afro puffed out. It was Iverson that embraced hip-hop culture. It was Iverson that brought in the trend that lasted for many years until recently when these guys started to wear these skinny-ass shorts again, of wearing the baggy shorts. I mean, Mike came in wearing baggy shorts, but Iverson wore really baggy shorts. And he's the one that brought in the trend of, guys wearing sleeves on their arms and the wristbands and the rubber bands and the sleeves on their legs like they're going to battle, going to war. It was Iverson. He was the one, even though Rodman wore tattoos, Rodman was more of the underground grudge alternative, culture. Iverson was the one that popularized the cornrows and tattoos in the NBA. And as a consequence of that, Allen Iverson was targeted by the NBA. He was targeted because, he was the first superstar not to really wear suits. He would wear, you know, urban attire. And people hated that. Some people hated it. The hood embraced Iverson. Black people embraced Iverson. But certain people didn't like him. And people forget how much of a villain he was in certain circles. And unfortunately, he was targeted. And the NBA's dress code that started being enforced in the mid-2000s was really aimed at players like Allen Iverson, you know, and others. And it was unfortunate because the NBA did all of that to enforce the dress code, and now you got these guys wearing the craziest, stupidest things. But it's okay because, see, these things are designed by European limp wrist fashion designers. So it's okay when they wear things that are part of another culture. That's okay. But when we were wearing things that are part of our culture from within, that was a problem to quote unquote America. But anyway, Iverson played 10 years with the Sixers, the highest team scoring average at 28.1, second in points scored with the franchise, 19,583. I'm trying to remember who's the all-time leading scorer for them. I think let's see, is it Hal Greer? Who is their all-time leading scorer? Let's see something. Yeah, it's Hal Greer. Hal Greer is the all-time leading scorer. Iverson, of course, is the first ballot Hall of Famer. And, you know, I mean, look, I'm going to tell you something, man. People who love Allen Iverson, man. I mean, he was, man, I would say he was possibly the most popular player in the black community. I would say in the first half of the 2000s, 2000 to 2005, I got to give it to AI, man. He was beloved, man. Beloved. And he may have been a villain in some quarters, but he was our villain. So anyway, I just want to show love. I know this video went a lot longer than my other videos, but anyway, much respect to AI, my sixth greatest shooting guard of all time. Tell me what you guys think.